like we are stepping into sand still warm from the sun, where the stars above Giza flicker not just as lights, but as symbols. The wind carries with it the dry hush of ancient breath. In the distance, a jackal calls once, then vanishes into the dark. It's late, the tea in your cup has gone lukewarm. The lamplight flickers gently against the stone wall. A cat sleeps beneath your chair, barely breathing, as if even she is listening. This is a quiet night, one made for memory, one made for a journey. Because tonight, you're going back, not just back in time, but back to a possibility. A version of reality buried under sand, sealed with limestone, and whispered only in dreams. The pyramids are calling. You may never know the end of this story, and that's okay. That's the magic. If you like this space and want to see me again on future nights, please like and follow. We have many more nights to tell stories together. Leave me a soft comment with your location and what time it is where you're listening. Let the map of sleepy minds connect beneath the stars. Now close your eyes if they haven't already. Let's go. Blank. Underscore. Blank. You don't remember falling asleep on the ledge, but you must have. The stone beneath you is warm, holding the memory of sun, and your fingers are curled slightly, like they've been gripping sand. When you sit up, the stars blink slowly above, indifferent but dazzling. Below you, the black line of the Nile curves like ink across a scroll. You know this place, and yet, everything feels different. You turn to the pyramids. They are not glowing, exactly, but catching starlight in a way that makes them shimmer like breath caught on glass. You rise without thinking, your body moving like it's been called. The wind doesn't push, it guides. Each step feels like memory rather than action. The crunch of sand, the rustle of your robe, the silence so deep you swear you can hear the stone thinking. You move closer to the Great Pyramid of Khufu, or what the locals call Akhet Khufu, the horizon of Khufu. They don't say it like it's a monument. They say it like it's a person. You press your palm to the wall. It's smoother than expected, cold despite the night's warmth, and then it hums, just faintly, a vibration no louder than the heartbeat of a thought. A voice, not external, but inside, asks, why did they build something so impossible? The wind shifts. You're not alone. There's a figure in white linen standing just beyond the shadow. Not menacing, just waiting. His face is lined like carved sandstone, but his eyes are unclouded. Curious. You came to listen, he says. That's good. Most come to prove. You nod, unsure if this is real, but willing to go with it. His voice is soft, worn down like the edge of a favorite book. The teachings are not in the stone, he says. They're in what the stone remembers. He gestures toward a small opening, one that shouldn't be there. It's low, just enough for you to crawl. You hesitate, not because of fear, but because part of you already knows that once you enter, you'll never think of the world the same way again. You crawl in. The corridor is narrow and steep. Your knees ache. Your hands find notches in the stone, worn by thousands of others, pilgrims, seekers, fools. The air grows cooler, thinner, but also sharper. Each breath feels like drinking from a thought that's too old to name. You reach a chamber. It is not on any map. No tourists, no guards, no electric lights, only a strange, steady glow, no source. It just is. The chamber is circular, unlike the sharp angles you'd expect. The walls are lined with etchings, not hieroglyphs, not letters, just patterns, spirals, waves, fractals, like someone etched frequency itself into the rock. You approach one, it looks like a ripple frozen in time. You run your fingers along it. It feels warm, then cold, then vibrating. You're remembering, says the voice again. The man is now inside with you. You didn't hear him enter. He doesn't explain. He sits cross-legged in the center of the room, and from his satchel, he pulls a small bronze bowl. He taps it gently with a rod. The sound it makes is not sharp or loud. It's everywhere. It folds around your body like silk dipped in thunder. And then the walls begin to shimmer. Not melt, not move, just shimmer, as if the etchings are absorbing the sound and speaking back in a language made of pressure and time. This, he says, is what we called hekau, word magic. Not spoken, but resonated. You sit beside him, the hum deepens, your spine aligns, your skin prickles. The room is doing something to your heartbeat. No, syncing with it, you're not afraid, you're remembered. The man speaks, but the words no longer use your ears. You ask what we taught, what we hid, but it was never hidden, just ignored. He taps the bowl again. This time, the room answers, not with echoes, but with light. A single line etches itself into the wall. Slowly, like a glowing quill across parchment, it reads, as above, so within. You've heard the phrase before, but not like this. The symbols aren't decorative, they vibrate. You realize each one has a tone, a frequency, a note, not a sentence, but a song. And then something strange happens. You understand it, not logically, not like a translation. You feel the meaning in your bones. The idea that the stars are not just above you, they're patterns. Reflected in your blood, your breath, your memories. You see it, a memory not yours, but part of you anyway. A circle of stonecutters working silently by moonlight, aligning each block not for strength but for sound. They tap each stone with bronze rods, listening for harmony. If it sings wrong, they replace it. Every wall is a chord, every passage is a melody. The pyramids weren't just built, they were tuned. The man stands, silent now. He places the bowl in front of you. You may ask one question, he says, but no, you will not get an answer. You will only hear what you're ready for. You think hard, 1,000 questions flood you. What was the purpose? Who built them? Did aliens? But none of them feel right. Instead, you ask, why did we forget? He smiles gently, not sadly, just knowingly, because remembering is not always safe. Then he's gone. You don't know how you leave. The next moment, you're outside. The stars are brighter now. The wind is still, and in your hand, you're holding the bronze bowl. It's cool, heavy, silent, but you know what it sounds like. And now, so does something inside you. The bowl in your hands is heavier now, not because its weight has changed, but because you have. You walk slowly across the sands, and the dunes feel less like scenery and more like pages. Each grain of sand, a forgotten footnote, each gust of wind, a paragraph read out of order. Somewhere, the sun has not yet risen, and yet the horizon is pinking gently as though the earth is preparing a secret it might or might not share. You tuck the bowl into a linen wrap slung over your shoulder. It doesn't ring anymore, but you swear it hums faintly, just beneath your awareness, like it's attuned to your thinking. Your feet guide you, not your will, and soon you find yourself standing before another structure, smaller than the pyramids. Less glamorous, just a stepped wall with a square black mouth cut into its base. Not a temple, not a tomb, just an opening that shouldn't matter and yet pulses with attention. As if it's watching you, as if it's always been watching you. A breeze issues from the opening, not cool, not warm, just thoughtful. You step in, the corridor within is dry and tight, but not suffocating. You run your fingers along the walls and feel small ridges, shallow carvings, symbols again, but not the swirling spirals of before. These are more geometric. Triangles nested within triangles, lines crossing at odd intervals, dots in rhythmic clusters, almost like musical notation designed for walls. The path leads downward, then flattens. You step into a chamber. Unlike the first, this one is squared, plain, but in the center, embedded in the floor, is a device or what's left of one. A bronze disc, maybe 3 feet across, etched with a circular pattern in a series of radial grooves. Like an enormous sundial married a record player. A man is there already, not the one from the first chamber. This one is younger, his robe unmarked, but his fingers are stained with ink. He doesn't greet you with a voice but with a gesture. He runs his finger around the edge of the disc slowly, reverently. Do you see the problem? He finally asks. You shrug. He smiles. That's the point. There isn't one. This device is perfect. Too perfect. You walk around the edge. Crouch beside him. It doesn't match the tools they had. He says softly, bronze can't make these grooves. Not like this. Not without something more. He taps the disc with a knuckle. It rains, high, clear, and sustained. They say this is a calendar. He continues, but I think it's a map. A map of what? He stands and walks to the wall behind him. There's a mural there, barely visible. You see stars, of course. A constellation resembling Orion's belt. Below that, the silhouette of the pyramids. But there's more. A second triangle. A shadow pyramid, floating above the real ones. Inverted and glowing faintly blue. A map of the sky. You murmur. Not just that, he says. A map of movement, of intention, of purpose. He gestures to the mural's lower corner, where a thin blue line curves down, terminating at what looks like an eye inside a spiral. This, he says, tapping the eye, isn't just watching, it's remembering. This whole structure is memory. You feel it again, the hum, stronger now, not from the bowl, but from beneath your feet. This chamber was never a room, he says. It was a machine. You think about the resonance from earlier, about how the pyramid sang, and then you remember the idea someone once floated, dismissed as fringe nonsense, that the pyramids weren't tombs but ancient power stations, that maybe they used the Nile's flow, the earth's vibration, even sound, to generate something we no longer understand. You voice this. The man only smiles. Maybe, he says, or maybe they didn't build for power. Maybe they built for preservation. That word echoes. Preservation. Of what? Language, he says softly, as if hearing your thought. Not words, but language, the kind that existed before speech, before writing. You think of birdsong, of drum beats, of heartbeat rhythms shared across generations. They encoded it, he says, in symbols, in architecture, in math, but also in silence, because some things are only heard when nothing else is loud. He gestures again to the disc. Touch it. You hesitate. Then you do. The sensation is immediate, like falling through a still pool into memory. You see not images, but understandings, a procession of stonecutters placing blocks not because of a plan, but because they'd memorized vibrations. A priest tapping the floor and listening for echoes. A ceremony at dawn, where a group of masked figures align their breath in sync with shadows moving down a corridor. And then, darkness, but not empty, waiting. You pull your hand back. Now you felt it, the man says. You can't unfeel it. You nod. He bends over the disc again and traces a particular groove. This line, he says, is aligned with the rising of Sirius. But not now, not last year, thousands of years ago. You blink. How could they? He shrugs. That's the wrong question. The right one is, why did they care? You sit on the stone ledge, silent. Why did they care? Why build something aligned with a star no one would live to see again? And then it hits you. Because they knew we'd ask. They built a question into the earth, not to be answered, but to be held, to survive conquest, time, fire. Because questions, when built well, last longer than answers. You sit in silence for a long time, feeling the weight of that. Eventually, the man places a palm flat on the stone and whispers, "Thank you, to the disc, to the builders." You're not sure, but the chamber hums in response. And somehow, that's enough. When you step back into the cool desert air, the sun has risen just slightly. The pyramid's shadow stretches long behind you, and the bowl in your wrap is warmer, as if the earth itself is beginning to remember. The sun creeps higher now, not fully risen but brushing everything with amber. You walk alongside the pyramid's base, its shadow dragging behind you like a quiet scribe recording each step. The air is thick with possibility, and the silence is no longer empty, it's curious. You feel like a page half-written, a narrow trail, dusted with footprints too shallow to belong to anyone recent, leads you toward a structure carved partly into the rock. Not a grand temple, not a tomb, modest, square, half-forgotten. The stones of the entrance still wear the chisel marks of the hand that shaped them, though those hands have long since turned to dust. At first glance, it looks empty inside. A shaft of light slices through a high window, painting a triangle on the stone floor. But when you enter, the quiet thickens. It folds around your ears, muffling even your breath. On the wall opposite, symbols are arranged not in lines, but in concentric circles. The outermost ones are large and simple. As the pattern spirals inward, the symbols grow smaller, more intricate, until at the center, there's just one mark, a dot surrounded by 12 rays. A whisper behind you, not words but presence. She enters like smoke, older than the man from the first chamber, yet lighter somehow. Her robe is saffron, her arms bare except for 3 copper bands around her left wrist. Her eyes do not blink quickly. She holds your gaze like it's a cup of tea, warm. With patience, "You're here early," she says. "I didn't know I was coming." No one does. That's how it works. She walks to the wall, tracing the outer ring of symbols with her fingers. "You felt sound," she says. "You've seen structure, but there's a language you haven't met yet. The one not carved, not spoken, not even written." You raise an eyebrow. "Then how is it language?" She smiles, and for the first time, You see something familiar behind her face. A weariness, a memory. It's a language of shape. She explains, of form, of pattern, of how one thing becomes another without ever losing itself. She turns back to you. It is not translation, it is resonance. You walk toward the wall, trying to follow her logic. You mean geometry, in part, but not Euclid's lines. Something older, something softer. She points to the spiral. Every ring is a pattern in the world. Sound, weather, orbit, sleep, memory. Each ring spins, and when it spins just right, it sings. You feel dizzy, not unpleasantly, like something inside you is being rearranged. She gestures to the center. That is the first pattern, the one before time. We call it the speaking shape. You laugh under your breath. That sounds poetic. It is, but it's also the closest thing we had to science. She lifts a flat object from a nearby ledge, a small square of what looks like baked clay, covered in raised dots and lines, some arranged in triangles, others in waves. It's a resonance glyph, she says, not for reading, for feeling. You hold it, it's heavier than it looks. Smooth, but every raised line vibrates faintly against your fingertips. It's like braille for emotion. You murmur. She nods. Exactly. You close your eyes, hold the glyph with both hands, and something moves in you. Not physically, not exactly, but memory stirs. You're back in a stone chamber, but different now. There are dozens of people, each holding similar tiles. They move in circles, humming quietly. Not a tune, just tone, frequency. Together, their sounds overlap and build like a slow tide. And then, silence, but not empty silence, held silence. And from that, understanding balloons, not in your brain, but in your ribs. You understand that this ritual was not performance. It was construction. They were building an idea. Together, you open your eyes. She's watching. You felt it. You nod, unsure how to speak. Even your voice feels like a blunt instrument now. Compared to what you just experienced, language seems inefficient. The pyramid builders, she says, weren't building tombs. They were building memories. Structures designed not to hold bodies, but to hold understanding. You run your hand across the glyph again. It hums louder now, or maybe you just hear better. She kneels beside a box, opens it, and pulls out a second tile, this one with swirling curves instead of angles. She places it next to the first. The space between them, just air, just nothing, feels alive, like a third thing is being born in the gap. They work in pairs. She whispers, always, thought and feeling, logic and shape. No glyph is complete alone. You stare at them. They're communicating without words. She nods, because words fracture. They separate meaning. Glyphs unify. Then she places the lid back on the box. The language is not for speaking, she says, but for remembering. You ask, remembering what? She touches her chest. Ourselves. Before we forgot. Your fingers rest on the edge of the first glyph, now warm with your skin's echo. You feel not smarter, but older, not in years, but in depth. Like something long asleep inside you has begun to stretch. She steps back, her robe rustles. There's more, she says, but not here. You glance around. Where then? She simply points. You follow her finger to the far wall, where a faint outline of a doorway pulses once, then fades. You walk toward it. As you near, the air thickens. You carry it with you. You step through the wall, and the world shifts again. This time, not in space, in meaning. The sensation of passing through the stone wall is not what you expect. There's no sudden cold, no flash of light, no jarring displacement. It's more like walking through a long-forgotten memory, a memory that doesn't quite belong to you, but still fits like a cloak passed down through generations. The air changes, subtly. It feels older here, still. The silence has weight. You take a slow breath. The room you now stand in is vast, wider than the last chamber, though there are no visible walls, just a great stone floor, smoothed by time and footfall, stretching outward into shadows. Above, there's no ceiling, only darkness, dotted with faint flickers of light, not stars. Reflections of what? You don't know. At the center of this immense space stands a single figure. He's sitting cross-legged on a raised stone platform, his robe gray with dust and folded perfectly. His eyes are closed, but you know he knows you're there. When he speaks, his voice is so quiet you nearly miss it. Which line did you follow? You're not sure how to answer. But the glyph in your hand pulses once, warm and steady, and that seems to be enough. He opens his eyes. They're pale, almost colorless, not with blindness, but with focus, as though he sees only what matters and nothing else. You've held the glyph, he says. You've touched the resonance, but now you must meet the builders. You begin to respond, but stop. He doesn't mean people, not living ones. Anyway, he means something else. He rises slowly, with the deliberation of one who's done it 1,000 times and still finds meaning in each movement. He gestures for you to follow. You walk together in silence across the floor. As you move, the space begins to change. Shapes rise from the stone, faint outlines at first, like sand paintings, but they gain dimension with each step. Columns, tools, figures frozen in mid-motion. They are not statues, not exactly. They are echoes. The builders, he whispers, left more than stone. They left presence. You reach out to one of the shapes, a figure holding what looks like a chisel made not of bronze or iron, but crystal. As your fingers graze its outline, you see a man, shirtless, eyes focused, taps the crystal against a block of limestone. But he isn't carving, he's tuning. With each strike, he listens, not for the sound, but for the feeling. He nods once, then moves on. Another block, another note. The guide beside you speaks. They weren't constructing buildings. They were conducting symphonies. You move to the next figure. 2 people this time. One adjusting a set of polished copper rods. The other whispering as they measure shadows across the stone. Their motions are not hurried. They are ritualistic. Each gesture serves both function and meaning. These builders, the guide says, understood that every stone laid was a statement of belief. That form is not separate from spirit. You pause. Is this a memory? You ask. He nods, and also a warning. You keep walking. More figures emerge, engineers aligning golden caps with sunbeams. Scribes drawing endless spirals into tablets that dissolve when you blink. One child, yes, child, leans over a bowl of water, watching how the surface shifts with her voice. She's experimenting with what you now understand to be acoustic encoding. She sings a note. The water shivers. A pattern forms. It's beautiful. You whisper. It was, the guide says, until we stopped listening. You turn to him. What Why did it end? He's quiet for a moment, then replies, it didn't. It was buried, because those who came later didn't hear the music. They heard power, and they wanted to control it. You walk farther, until the shadows shift again. Now you see a room filled with stone blocks, each one carved with intricate angles, nested into one another not with force, but balance, floating, almost. The walls here hum, not with sound, but with memory, a low, persistent pressure just behind the eyes. The guide steps back, letting you approach. On the central block is an inscription, not in letters, but in geometry. 3 triangles inside a circle. A line above, curved, and beneath it, 12 dots arranged in pairs. You don't know why, but you kneel. Your fingers touch the cold stone. A voice, neither male nor female, rises inside your head like breath. What you seek is not lost, only layered. What you fear is not destruction, but disconnection. To remember is to rejoin. Your body trembles, not from fear, but recognition, as if something buried inside your ribs is unfolding. Leaf by leaf, the glyph in your palm warms again. You ask the guide, your voice hoarse. Did they know we would return? They hoped, and so they built layers. Not traps, not puzzles, just folds, so that even if the surface was erased, the core would wait. You walk now, alone, to the edge of the chamber. There's another corridor, barely wide enough for your shoulders. The guide doesn't follow. Before you go, he says, some truths are not meant to be believed, only carried. You nod, not because you understand, but because you know one day you will. As you step into the narrow path, the glyph pulses once more. The stone under your feet grows warmer, and you hear, so faintly it could be imagined, a hum, a chord, a voice, not singing, remembering. The passage narrows further, just enough for your shoulders to clear the sides. Each step echoes, not loudly, but with a kind of intimate weight, like the stone is listening. The further you go, the more the air changes, denser, quieter, almost velvet-like against your skin. You slow your breath to match its rhythm. Ahead, a pale glow spills into the corridor. Not torchlight, not firelight, something else, softer, more internal. You step through a final arch and into a chamber unlike anything you've seen so far. It's spherical, not circular, spherical, a dome cut perfectly from stone, its walls smooth and without mark, at least. At first glance, at the center, suspended in midair, floats a single golden prism. It should fall. It doesn't. No strings, no platform. It simply hovers, turning slowly, breathing, almost. You don't speak. You barely breathe. The glyph in your hand throbs gently, then goes still. It has done its job. You step closer. As you approach the prism, the walls of the chamber begin to shift. Not physically, not visually, perceptually. Symbols emerge, not carved, but felt, like heat through closed eyelids. They bloom in your mind. Lines, arcs, fractals, eyes, circles, patterns that fold and unfold in motion. Then the prism pulses with light, and you change. You're no longer standing, you're floating, too, not in the air, but in thought, disconnected from gravity, from self-definition, from time. You become the observer of a memory not your own. The earth unfolds below, green, vast, wild, A man in linen kneels in the sand, drawing spirals with a reed. Above him, in the sky, stars fall into alignment. He smiles, not because they shine, but because they whisper. He's not looking at them. He's listening. You shift again. A procession climbs the steps of the pyramid, not to worship, but to calibrate. They carry rods, stones, scrolls. They speak no words. They move like a single creature, aware of itself, a living metaphor. You hear a voice, your own, but older. We are not building for the dead. We are building for the memory of life. The prism brightens. The chamber walls begin to resonate, not in sound, but in sensation. You feel warmth in your sternum, pressure behind your eyes, a tingling across your fingertips. The patterns on the walls change. Now you see DNA, not drawn or represented, expressed, not double helices, but harmonic spirals. You realize the builders knew about life at a level not yet named. They didn't describe it, they harmonized with it. A voice interrupts your awe. Not spoken, not heard, just known. You forgot, because you stopped listening. You see centuries of dust, fires, invasions, scrolls burning, priests murdered, knowledge tossed into rivers and covered by the noise of conquest. But the chamber does not mourn. It remembers. The prism darkens. You fall gently back into yourself, standing once more on warm stone, heart racing. The walls are quiet now. The symbol's gone, but in your palm, the glyph glows, and then dissolves. It turns to dust. Not vanished, but released. You don't panic, you bow, because now, it's not in your hand, it's in you. The passage behind you is gone, or never was. A new doorway appears, slanted light leaks through it. You follow. Outside, the desert has changed. The stars are gone. The sky is soft orange, like the earth is stretching. You are standing on a ridge overlooking the pyramids, but they are different now. Clean, whole, gold-capped, surrounded by lush gardens, canals, and stone towers. Alexandria glitters in the distance, not modern Alexandria, but one that could have been, what the world might have looked like if the teachings hadn't been buried, if the glyphs had not been silenced. And then you see something that stops your breath. Children, dozens of them, gathered at the base of the pyramid, listening, not to a teacher, to the stone. One touches the base and nods. Another hums a tone, and a symbol lights up faintly above the entrance. They are learning not by instruction, but by resonance. One child sees you, waves, smiles. You wave back, then everything blurs. You awaken, not startled, but soft. You're lying on warm stone. Beside you, a thin bowl. Inside it, nothing, but you swear it hums. The air smells like dust and rosemary, and the pyramid watches you, not with menace, but with memory. Your fingers itch. Your heart feels old and new at once. You stand and walk, not away, but further in, because now you remember what it feels like to be remembered. The morning sun has not yet crested the dunes when you reach the edge of the stone path. You stop, not from exhaustion, but awe. Before you lies something too geometric to be natural, too humble to be regal. A courtyard, perfectly circular, etched with a spiral that begins at its outer rim and narrows toward the center, where a single pedestal rises from the ground, unadorned. There is no roof above, yet the space feels enclosed, like silence itself is the architecture. As you step into the spiral, you notice the ground is inlaid with different materials: sandstone, obsidian, fragments of copper, and tiny chips of a blue-green stone you can't name. The pattern under your feet sings in frequencies beyond sound. You feel them in your knees, in your chest cavity, behind your eyes. You reach the center. The pedestal is no taller than your hip. Resting atop it is a tablet, thin, slightly translucent, veined with lines that shimmer faintly as if reacting to the light you carry inside your own body. You don't remember picking it up, but when your fingers reach for it, it's already there, weightless, cool. A figure appears at the outer edge. Unlike the others you've met, this one wears no robe. His skin is dust dark, his tunic short, practical. Around his waist, a belt of tools, blades not for war, but for making. His hair is tightly braided, his eyes the color of river silt. He walks the spiral without sound. When he reaches you, he does not speak. He places a flat square of bronze next to the tablet and waits. You understand, this is a test, not of knowledge, but of intention. You place your hands on both the tablet and the bronze square. They connect with a magnetic click. Light bursts from the tablet's lines, and shapes float into the air above you, rotating, recalibrating. He nods. Together, you watch as the light reshapes itself. A city appears, one built around pyramids. Yes, but also aqueducts, reservoirs, bridges shaped like leaves, solar mirrors crafted from polished stone, and gardens stacked like ziggurats. It's not a vision of the past. It's a blueprint of what could have been, and still might be. The man finally speaks. His voice is layered, like multiple versions of himself speaking in harmony. This was not lost, he says. It was paused. You watch as children appear in the vision, climbing onto circular platforms that glow beneath their feet, responding to song. Farmers tending not fields, but ecosystems. Physicians mixing herbs with knowledge coded into their own breath cycles. Why pause it, you ask? He smiles, because the world chose noise. You blink, noise. He nods. Power shouted louder than understanding. Greed clattered louder than patience. Memory whispered, but was drowned. You look at the light vision again. Can we go back to this? No, he says. You can only go forward, but you can carry this with you. He lifts a crystal rod from his belt, places it against the bronze square. The entire vision shrinks, condenses into a single orb of light, small enough to fit in your palm. It hovers, pulses. Take it, he says, but know this, it is seed, not fruit. You cup it in your hands. It doesn't burn, but it remembers. The spiral begins to pulse beneath your feet, a slow thrum that matches your heartbeat. Walk, he says. You do. As you step, the spiral unwinds, not physically, but perceptually. With every step, a memory unfolds. You see a group of midwives using resonance bowls to measure fetal alignment. A sailor plotting star paths using not a chart, but a tone harmonic compass. A teacher leading students not through a lesson, but through a breathing pattern that teaches them to feel angles. A blind woman tracing glyphs with her tongue. Each memory is not fiction. They are stored. They belong to the place, to the structure, to the stone. By the time you reach the outer edge again, you feel taller, not in body, but in time, like you now carry a stack of lives inside you. The man is gone, only the orb remains, warm in your hands. You place it gently inside a cloth pouch hanging around your neck. It settles near your heart, and you move on. Beyond the courtyard is a bridge, thin, almost frail, but holding fast. Beneath it, nothing, not desert, not void, just unknown, and beyond it, another structure, darker, simpler, no symbols, no spirals. You cross without looking down. The stone beneath your feet hums encouragement, not song, just trust. At the other side, a door, wood this time, weathered, hinged. You push it open. Inside, a small chamber, and a single book, bound in leather, pages of fiber, written in a language you do not know, but understand. The first line reads, "What you remember is not yours, but it has chosen you." You sit, you open the book, and you begin to read. The room holds no windows, no torches, yet somehow the space glows dim and golden, like the final light inside a candle just before it dies. You sit with the book open on your lap, and though the text is entirely unfamiliar, your mind begins to parse it, not through language, but through recognition. Each glyph sings a quiet note in your chest. Each phrase echoes like a faint drum beneath your ribs. The walls around you are bare, save for faint outlines of what might once have been murals, scraped away by time or perhaps by intention. You run your hand over the stone surface. It's warm, not heated, but remembered. You turn the page. A diagram fills the next spread. A cross-section of a pyramid, not the one you've walked through, but one unseen. Beneath the base lie chambers that spiral downward, looping like the coils of a snail shell. Tiny dots represent people along the edges of each chamber. Curved lines, some symbols, others harmonics, as if space and sound were mapped together. Then a phrase appears below, one you somehow understand. It is not a tomb, it is a conversation. You hear a sound behind you, not footsteps, breath. You turn, another figure stands in the corner. You're no longer surprised by their silent arrivals. This one wears a layered garment of linen and reed fiber, patterned with constellations stitched in dark blue thread. Her face is framed by tight curls. She holds no book, no tablet, only a small metal instrument shaped like a harp with no strings. You speak first this time. What do you remember? She sits across from you, placing the harp-shaped object between you. I remember the apprentices, she says. They built nothing, but they understood everything. You frown. How? They watched, she says. They listened. They slept beside the stone, and the stone spoke back. You glance at the book again. There's something here, you say, in the lower chambers. A pattern. She nods. Every level of the pyramid corresponded to a stage of perception. Below the foundation, they didn't store treasure. They stored questions. You run your finger along the spiral drawn on the page. Did they ever find the answers? She smiles. They never looked for them. You pause. Then what were they doing? She leans forward. Her voice lowers to a whisper. They were listening for the right questions. Your stomach tightens, not in fear, but revelation. You flip the page again. More diagrams. One shows a group of figures standing in a circle, facing inward, arms extended toward the center. In the middle, a bowl of water. Above the image, shared resonance reveals shared memory. You speak softly. Memory isn't individual. She nods. Not here, not in this structure, not in this culture. They believed memory was something that passed through people, not something they owned. You stare at her. They weren't just building structures. You say slowly, they were building instruments. She smiles, doesn't respond, but you already know you're right. Then she reaches into her garment and produces a small triangular token. At first it looks like metal, then like bone, then like light. It seems to shimmer between states. She places it on the floor between you. It hums. Take it, she says. You hesitate. What does it do? It reminds, she says, but only when you're ready. You reach for it. The moment your fingers touch the surface, an image floods your senses. A vast room filled with people humming in unison, their voices rising and falling like waves. A ceiling painted not with stars, but with the exact motion of stars, constellations that dance as you blink. A teacher pressing a small crystal against a child's chest, whispering, "You are not learning, you are remembering what the earth knows through you." And then you're back. The token is warm in your palm. The figure rises. "It's time," she says. "For what?" you ask. "To see what they feared." Your breath catches. You follow her. She leads you down a winding stair you hadn't noticed before, curved, tight, descending into cool air. The walls here are smooth. No glyphs, no murals, no music, until you hear it, a single tone, low, endless. It vibrates in your spine, in your teeth, in the soles of your feet. She stops at a door, carved from basalt, its surface covered in deep grooves, none decorative, all functional. You know this instinctively. They're channels, for sound, for memory, for warning. She places a hand on the door. It melts open, not in heat, but in will. Inside, nothing and everything. A room so black it glows. Floating shapes drift across the space, too slow to be alive, too graceful to be random. At first you think they're geometric, then emotional, then conceptual. They are failures, she says, attempts to hold too much, or to push too far. You turn to her. This is where they stopped. No, she says, this is where they paused. Because of fear. No, she says again. Because of respect. You step forward. A single platform rises in the center. You climb it. Your token glows, and the blackness folds into color, into memory, into knowledge not yet spoken. And you listen. The moment the color unfolds, your knees almost give out. It's not brightness that overwhelms you, but complexity. The blackness hasn't gone away, it's simply parted, like a veil, revealing layered dimensions that move not just through space, but through time. You are inside something that's not a room, not a chamber, not even a structure. You are inside a mind, but not your own, not a person's, a civilization's. At first, you hear it, a vibration, low and steady, like the earth exhaling, but then, you see it, patterns ripple outward from you in concentric circles, each ring alive with symbols, frequencies, and shifting textures. You realize, the platform beneath your feet is responding to you, reacting to your breath, your pulse, your memory. The token glows brighter. Then, it begins to teach. One ring shows spirals nested inside triangles, each one a code for ratios, rotations, and echoes. Another ring displays symbols for heat and cold. not as opposites, but as interwoven variables, responding to pressure and intent. Farther out, a third ring illuminates with thousands of tiny marks that seem to map sound. But not as we measure it, in decibels or pitch, but as effect. What a sound can do to a wall. A body, a soul. You step to the edge of the platform. Immediately, the entire space shifts. The color reshapes into images. Not static, moving, living. You see a pyramid, under construction, not the great ones of Giza, but one smaller, sharper. Teams of workers align crystals along the internal walls, not to channel light, but to capture resonance. You hear a voice narrating, not from outside, but inside your skull. We built not for gods, not for rulers, but for pattern. Each stone placed is answer to a question only the earth knew to ask. The scene shifts again. Now, an older man, eyes closed, floats in a shallow pool at the pyramid's center. Around him, others chant, not words, but tones, long, drawn-out notes that rise and fall in rhythm. The water pulses gently in response. Symbols light up along the pool's edge. This is memory before paper. The voice continues. Memory before script. This is the body as scroll. The air as ink. The sound as meaning. 1,000 questions rush to your tongue, but none can be spoken. Not here. This place is not for asking. It's for receiving. The rings of knowledge grow faster, more detailed. One reveals the geometry of breath, inhalation modeled as a fractal sequence. Exhalation as entropy's decay. Another maps the orbits of moons around long-lost planets, evidence. Perhaps that the builders knew not only Earth's skies, but others. Further still, you see a chart that seems to plot emotion, its cause and effects rendered in arcs and tones. Love, joy, fear, shame, each with a frequency, each with a shadow, each with a purpose. And then, one ring darkens. It breaks. A jagged fracture splits across the entire vision. Symbols collapse. Patterns unravel. The resonance stops. The chamber darkens again. You collapse to your knees. The token in your hand flickers, then dims. Someone enters the space behind you. Not a guide, not a priest, not even a figure. Just a presence. You feel it before you see it. A tug at your spine. A soft, impossibly deep voice. You saw too much, too soon. You turn. A shape drifts forward, not man, not beast, not light, just awareness, swirling like ink dropped in water. You whisper, "What happened?" It answers, "Curiosity outpaced harmony. A generation tuned the pyramids to power, not resonance. They cracked the shell of the pattern without learning the yoke. Is that why it was buried?" Yes. You shake your head, but we're ready now. Silence. Then, are you? The light flares once, and the broken ring reappears, still fractured, but paused, as if waiting for reassembly. You speak again, softer. "What do I do with this?" The voice hums like wind in a canyon. You remember, not just facts, not just shape, but intention. Carry it in your breath. Teach it in your silence. Let others feel it before they learn it. The color fades. The vision dissolves. And you are back in the chamber. Seated on the platform, heart thudding like a drum against stillness. The token is dark again. But your body remembers. You rise. Behind you, the shapes are still. Not frozen. Just waiting. You walk toward the threshold that now glows faintly along one edge of the wall. A door that wasn't there, or maybe it always was. You pass through, and the air shifts. You're outside again, but the desert has changed. The sky is a matte gray. Wind lifts grains of dust into soft, whirling spirals. The pyramid stands behind you, unchanged in stone, but different in presence. It watches now, not passively, actively, and it knows you want the reins. You look down at your hands. They glow slightly at the fingertips. Only when you exhale does it stop. You begin to walk, and every grain of sand beneath your foot seems to listen. The desert stretches in every direction, vast, open, utterly silent, and yet something tugs at your senses. Not sound, not scent, not even sight. It's something deeper, a resonance that moves beneath your skin, like the memory of music you've never heard before. You follow it. Your path leads you across uneven sand, past stones inscribed with markings that seem to shift when you look away. Some appear to hum softly, like they're waiting to be remembered, and you do, not because you recognize them, but because they recognize you, as if you returned to a conversation left unfinished thousands of years ago. In the distance, you see a structure, not as grand as the pyramids, but no less mysterious. It resembles an amphitheater sunk into the earth, its circular walls etched with alternating bands of obsidian and limestone. At the center, a raised dais shaped like a tuning fork, flattened and carved from dark wood. You approach cautiously. The moment your feet touch the outer ring, the air tightens. A chime, not from around you, from within you. You feel it in your ribs, your spine, your molars. A woman stands at the far end of the ring. She's older than anyone you've seen so far. Her silver hair braided with copper strands. Her robe is simple, almost monastic, but stitched with unfamiliar glyphs across the hem. In one hand, she holds a narrow flute carved from crystal. She raises it to her lips, but does not play. Instead, she gestures for you to sit. You obey. She studies you for a long moment before speaking. Do you know the ritual? You shake your head. She smiles gently. Good. That means you still have room to feel it. She begins to walk the rain. Slowly, her feet bare against the warm stone. As she moves, she hums, a tone so low it barely qualifies as a note. You feel it nonetheless. The space responds. Patterns begin to emerge on the surface of the dais, shifting spirals. Glyphs made of light, resonant maps that seem to float a hair's width above the floor. She stops. Once, she says, we didn't use words to open understanding. We used sound. We used breath. You nod. Somehow, this makes perfect sense. She continues. There was a ritual performed once every solar revolution. Not a ceremony, a tuning, a way to align the memories of the people with the memory of the earth. Everyone participated, not as audience, as instrument. You close your eyes. You hear it now, not just her humming, but layers of it, ancient layers, memories of past tunings. Children giggling as they tried to match the tone, elders steadying the rhythm, a chorus of humanity tuning itself like a harp. She steps closer. We did not gather to ask for blessings. We gathered to remind the earth that we remembered how to listen. You look up. Why did it stop? Her eyes dim slightly. Conquest, she says, not just of land, but of meaning. She kneels beside you. The ritual requires no tools. She whispers, only presence, intention, silence between the notes. She holds out the crystal flute. It's your turn. You hesitate, but I don't know how. She smiles. Neither did we, until we did. You take the flute. It's cool, weightless, humming faintly in your hand. You raise it to your lips, and below, no sound, at least, not one you can hear. But the space responds. The rings begin to shimmer. The air vibrates. You feel something rising from the stone into your body, not possession, but partnership, as if the place is playing you as much as you are playing the instrument. Your mind shifts. Suddenly you are not you. You are a child in ancient Egypt, following your grandmother to the ritual circle at dawn. You are a builder, marking the spiral stones in tune with your own heartbeat. You are a priestess, pressing her palm to the earth before drawing the first tone. You are all of them, and none of them. You are the space between. You lower the flute. The rings pulse one last time. Then still, the woman nods. You remembered, she says. You open your mouth to ask something, but she's already gone. Not vanished, just moved. The amphitheater fades behind you like mist dissolving in morning heat. You are standing alone in a grove. Trees that don't exist in any botanical record. Their trunks spiral upward like incense smoke made solid. Their leaves shimmer like oil on water. The wind through them sings in tones of vowels, not consonants. A young boy appears beside you. He's barefoot, dusty, smiling. He points. You follow his gaze. A staircase descends beneath the largest tree, cut not into earth, but memory itself. You descend, one step at a time. Each stair a thought, a name, a forgotten ritual. And when you reach the bottom, there is only light, no form, no sound, no fear, just resonance. You step into the light, but instead of blindness, you see everything, not in detail, not in events, but in feeling. A map of human memory that stretches in every direction. Without horizon, it is not linear. It loops, it folds, it breathes, and at its heart, a pulse, not your own, but older, wiser, planetary. You are inside a chamber without walls. It holds neither ceiling nor floor, and yet you stand, grounded. The light shifts, not like sunlight, but like a thought gaining clarity. Before you, a shape emerges. At first it looks like a cube, then a circle, then a pyramid, then all three at once. Its surface is covered in inscriptions, not etched, but suspended, floating symbols that drift gently in and out of meaning. Some are star maps, some are musical notation, some are unknown. You blink, and the structure reshapes again, this time into a corridor. Long, endless, but at the far end, a doorway flickers. You begin walking. The floor beneath you glows faintly with each step, like stepping across the memories of civilizations long since turned to dust. You hear voices, not loud, not threatening, just curious, soft, constant. They are asking questions. What lies beneath the Nile's shift? What is the language of fire? Why does the moon return, but never remember? Each question appears above your head as glowing script. Each one disappears before you can answer. Not because the questions aren't real, but because the answers aren't the point. You reach the doorway. You pass through. The corridor opens into a domed room, a perfect circle of polished stone. In its center, a model, not of the earth, not of the pyramids, but itself. It spins slowly, layer by layer. It reveals itself. One layer shows a spiral, each loop a cycle of rise and fall. Wisdom and forgetting, invention and silence. Another reveals a grid, a series of intersections marked by moments of cultural awakening. You recognize some, the Renaissance, the Axial Age, the invention of writing, but others are unfamiliar, dates you don't know, cultures you've never studied, all of them lost, all of them aligned. You step closer, the model responds, a voice fills the dome, not from above, from within you. We built maps of time because we knew memory was not enough. You ask aloud, then what is enough? The answer comes, pattern that teaches itself to those who look with soft eyes. You stare at the model again, the spiral, the grid. You notice something new, along the outer edge of the spiral. Faint notches, like a clock, but not hours, not years, awakenings, and you realize something chilling. There are fewer and fewer notches as the spiral narrows, until it stops. You whisper, "Why did we stop?" The voice returns, because forgetting became easier than remembering, because conquest sounded louder than questions, because the maps were buried, first beneath stone, then beneath story. You sit beside the model. It continues to turn. Its movement is patient, forgiving, hopeful. You ask, can the spiral begin again? The voice hums, gentle, not begin, continue. Nothing ends. It only waits. You breathe in, you breathe out, and you remember a line you read days, or was it lifetimes, ago. The pyramids are not places. They are invitations. You press your pawn to the model's edge. It stops spinning and shifts into a sphere. Inside, a glowing point of light pulses softly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. You know what it is. A single idea, protected, preserved, waiting to be asked for. You close your eyes, and the sphere dissolves. The room fades. You open your eyes again. You're standing in the desert, but not the one you left. This one is filled with people. Not modern, not ancient, just possible. They carry instruments, books, stones etched with music. Children chant beside aqueducts. Elders teach with diagrams drawn in sand. Above it all, the pyramids stand not as relics, but as active minds, part of the community. And at the center of it all, you understand now. The teachings were never meant to be hidden. They were waiting to be heard when we had ears to listen. You feel something warm in your hand. The token, it glows again, but only for a moment. Then dims, its purpose fulfilled. You walk forward, through the sand, past those remembering, and those just learning how. And above you, the sky turns gold. You wander through the golden dusk, each step lighter than the last. The sand no longer sinks under your weight, it lifts you. Somehow, around you, voices blend with the wind, laughter, low chants, the clatter of tools. There's an ease here, not because life is simple, but because it's aligned. You sense it in the way the breeze syncs with the motion of woven baskets, in the way shadows fall precisely at the angle of sundials, in how nobody seems hurried, yet nothing is late. You arrive at a low structure carved partly into the rock, subtle, hidden, humming quietly. A tablet rests outside the entrance, etched with symbols that spiral inward. The outermost ring reads, "This is the archive of failed questions. A young boy sits nearby, legs crossed, gently running his fingers over a smooth stone. He looks up at you, not startled, not surprised. "You're here early," he says. "Am I?" He shrugs. "You're here when you are. That's early enough." He gestures toward the entrance. You thank him. Inside, the air shifts again, heavier this time. Not oppressive, but dense with thought. You're surrounded by shelves and alcoves. Scrolls bound in reed, and small clay tablets arranged like constellations. There's no dust, no silence. Instead, a quiet murmur. The soft whisper of questions too complex to be answered, too important to be lost. You reach for one scroll. It reads, "What is the shape of trust?" Another, "What happens when memory remembers itself?" A third, older and cracked, "If you teach a stone to sing, who does it sing to?" You're not overwhelmed. You're invited. These aren't riddles. They're echoes. You feel the pyramid's teachings vibrating in the very architecture here, not through solutions, but through the permission to wonder without conclusion. A figure appears between shelves, a girl, no older than 16, with ink-stained hands and a belt filled with chisels. She nods to you. "I catalog the ones we've grown into," she says. "Not solved, just earned." She holds out a new clay tablet. "It's blank. You'll write yours later," she says. You laugh, softly. "How will I know what to ask?" "You'll know when you forget something important." She vanishes behind a row of scrolls. You sit and realize something. The archive isn't a place of failure. It's a garden. Questions grow here, and when you're ready, they bloom. You close your eyes, and the memory returns. The boy beside the marble map. The girl who whispered, "Now you've done it." The old man with stars stitched into his robe. None of them were answers. They were catalysts. They were part of the Great Pyramid conversation. You rise, tablet still in hand. You walk deeper into the archive. In one chamber, you find a dome of mirrors, not to reflect your face, but your intention. In another, scrolls whisper in languages you've never learned, yet somehow understand. You move through them like a dream you don't want to wake from. Every corridor leads not to closure, but to expansion. You begin to sense the pyramid again, not behind you, but within you. Every lesson, every tone, every silent humming wall, it lives now as part of your breath, your spine, your way of seeing. In one final room, there's a pool of water perfectly still. You lean over it, and the reflection isn't yours. It's theirs, the builders, the rememberers, the apprentices. They're watching you, not judging, just waiting. You whisper, barely audible, "Am I one of you now?" The water ripples once, then goes still. No answer, just resonance. You leave the room quietly. Outside, the world has shifted again. Children dance in spirals on a wide stone platform. Elders draw in sand. In the distance, a line of pyramids glows in the last light of day. Not just the familiar three, but dozens, some angular, some rounded, some shaped like open hands reaching skyward. You realize something else. The library never burned. Not here. Not really. It survived in the questions. It survived in the tones. It survived in the people who refused to forget, not by clinging to facts, but by honoring wonder. A woman hands you a warm cup of something sweet and dark. "Drink," she says. "The night remembers." You sip, and it tastes like stories not yet told. You sit on a stone ledge beside a fireless bowl that glows with soft light. Around you, the community gathers. No hierarchy, no spectacle, just stories, told softly, with long pauses and smiles that linger. You begin to tell yours, and nobody interrupts, because they know what you now know. Every pyramid was a song, every scroll, a sigh, every buried teaching, a seed. And this is the garden where they rise again. The garden deepens as the stars take their places. One by one, they settle into familiar constellations, but not as you once knew them. Here, they are not called Orion or Lyra. They are named after questions. That one overhead, where does the river go when it dreams? And that slow blinking red star, how do you know you've truly listened? You're not watching the night sky anymore. You're reading it. Beside you, someone hums, low, long, effortless. It's not a tune, it's a cue, like the soft footfall that signals the next part of a ritual. And just like that, people begin to move, not as an audience, not as performers, but as participants in something felt, not staged. It begins with walking, wide arcs traced into the sand with bare feet, then hands raised, then lowered, like sculpting wind. There are no instructions, no leader, but somehow, everyone knows. You stand and join, not self-conscious, not uncertain, just open. And as you step through the spirals, you feel it happening again, the pattern that lives in the pyramids, in the tones, in the echoes of forgotten libraries. It's tuning you. You are becoming your own scroll, your own compass, your own ritual. A woman brushes past, gently presses a folded cloth into your hand. When you open it later, you'll find a drawing, a seed, a circle, and a question mark. No words, just invitation. The dance winds down, not with applause, with stillness. Everyone sits again. You don't notice the chill until someone drapes a warm shawl over your shoulders. The material feels like it was woven from sunrise. Someone begins to speak, but not in any known language, just tone and gesture. It's like watching a memory mime itself into form. Another follows, and another. Stories bloom like night-blooming flowers, fragile, brief, scented with meaning. One woman tells of a pyramid that disappeared when its question was finally answered. Another man recalls a dream of a city built on silence, where every home was designed to amplify the sound of one's own heartbeat. Then silence. The fireless bowl in the center flickers once, and suddenly, you feel it. The ending has arrived, not just of the night, but of your journey. You stand, unprompted. Your feet take you toward the edge of the gathering, past figures who nod without words, past children who smile like they know you from a time you've never lived. At the edge of the hill, a path descends, stone steps lit by tiny points of moss glow. You descend. Each step hums a note beneath your weight. The air cools, the world narrows, and you arrive at one final door, circular, unmarked, pulsing faintly. Your token glows again. This time, not alone. You glow with it. You press your palm to the door. It opens. No creak, no announcement, just acceptance. You step inside, and now, the silence is perfect. You are in the first chamber. Not the oldest, not the deepest. The first, as in, the place from which all others were remembered. The walls are blank, the floor is smooth, the air is warm, There is no light source, yet you see, and in the center of the room, nothing. Just space. You sit, you wait, and from the silence, a voice not heard, but understood. Not in your ear, but in your spine, in your breath. The pyramid was not built to last forever, only long enough to be remembered. And now, it is inside you. You nod, and the room nods with you. Not a ripple, not a sound, just a mutual, sacred understanding. A wind moves through the chamber without stirring your skin. You stand, you turn, the door is gone, but you are not trapped. You're complete. The room dissolves, and you are back under the stars. But they're different again, brighter, softer, more familiar. You walk now not as seeker, but as carrier. The teachings hidden in stone are now written in your gait. Your silence, your gaze. You pass through the final stone gate. Beyond it, nothing but horizon. And yet, you smile, because you're not afraid. You know the pyramid will travel with you, not in shape, not in fact, but in function. Every step forward is now a question asked kindly of the world. And you're ready for the answers, or not, because the question was the teaching all along. Dawn stretches itself across the horizon like a yawn, and you feel its warmth before you see its light. The desert is still, but no longer asleep. It's in that state between dreaming and waking. The world has not yet made up its mind, and neither have you. You sit once more at the ridge overlooking the great pyramids. Only now, they look different, not larger, not smaller, just closer, as though the distance between you and them was never physical, but conceptual, emotional, linguistic, a distance of assumption. You reach into your pocket. The token is gone, but in its place, a small crystal shard, no bigger than a fingernail. When you hold it to the sky, it refracts the sunlight into a perfect spiral. Not rainbow, not color, but memory. You rise, stretch, and begin walking. You're not alone. Others walk too. Some toward the pyramids, some away, some beside you for a time, then branching off. Nobody asks where anyone is going, because here, destinations are not the point, only motion with memory. You follow a dry stream bed back toward the outskirts of Alexandria, or at least something like it, but this version is quieter, more patient, fewer wheels, more water jars, more eyes that meet yours and seem to say, "Ah, you've heard it too." You stop at a modest dwelling, whitewashed stone, sun-bleached curtains swaying. A woman sits outside, weaving fibers into cords. She looks up. No one comes back from the archive with dry eyes. She says, "You touch your cheek." She smiles. "Don't worry," she continues. "That's not grief. That's recognition." You sit across from her. She offers tea. You drink. It tastes like time and shadow. She begins to braid another cord. This one already half done. The pattern is intricate, familiar. You blink. You've seen it before. On the ceiling of the first chamber. Woven into the cloak of the crystal flute woman. Carved into the tuning stone of the ritual circle. It's everywhere, once you know how to see it. You look at her. "Did you learn this from the pyramid?" She smiles gently. "The pyramid learned it from us." You pause. Then, so the knowledge, it wasn't hidden. Not hidden, just untranslated. You can't read a book with your eyes closed. And you can't hear a song if you're shouting. You both sit in silence for a while. The kind that nourishes. Then, she stands, walks inside, and returns with a small scroll, not papyrus, cloth, inked in dark indigo. She hands it to you. For when you return, she says, you frown, return where? She simply nods toward the road, and it hits you. Your journey didn't start in this version of Alexandria. It started in another, one you forgot, one that forgot itself. This place, the teachings, the pyramids, the tones, it was not a dream. It was a reminder. You thank her. She doesn't answer, because she doesn't need to. You walk. Each step feels lighter, but not because you're floating, because you're carrying less fear. At the edge of the city, a stone arch awaits. You pass beneath it, and as you do, you feel a shift in temperature, in gravity, in time, and when you open your eyes again, you're in your bed, soft sheets, faint hum of the real world, a cup of tea on the nightstand, still warm, but your body remembers, your breath is slower, your heart is quieter, and your mind, not full, but open, and that's how you know. You brought something back. The bathhouse is quiet when you arrive. Too quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that presses against your temples with questions. Steam curls out from the stone arches like lazy serpents, and the scent of lavender, wet limestone, and something suspiciously like olive soap hits you the moment you step through the threshold. You've been walking for what feels like centuries, sand in your shoes, sun on your neck, your thoughts cluttered with star maps and spirals, archives and rituals, voices that didn't use words. All you wanted, desperately, was a bath. And now, standing barefoot on a mosaic of lotus flowers and lions, you're about to get your wish. The attendant is half asleep, slouched behind a clay counter, his feet propped up on a basket of clean towels. He doesn't even open his eyes when he mumbles. Token, you show him your palm. There's nothing in it, but he nods as if you've presented royal proof. Room 6. Don't mind the goats. They left, probably. You raise a brow. He waves you off. You push past a heavy curtain and step into a corridor that smells like time, honey, and decades of unanswered philosophical debate. The walls sweat. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughs a little too loud. You find room 6. It's empty, almost. There's a robe on the bench, a small jug of cool water, a tiny clay bowl with salt that glitters like stardust. You pour the salt into your palm, rub it between your fingers. It whispers against your skin like it's telling secrets. The bath itself is a small pool carved from white stone, its edges chipped with time, the water perfectly still. You dip your toes in. It's heavenly, warm, silky, as if the water remembers how tired you are before you do. You slide in slowly, and for a moment, just a moment, it's perfect. Your shoulders unclench, your lungs loosen, your spine sighs with gratitude. Then you hear the door creak open. You freeze. Footsteps. You sink lower. A figure enters, a middle-aged man in a saffron wrap. Carrying a scroll, he nods politely and lowers himself into the pool on the opposite side without saying a word. You blink, another door opens. A young woman steps in, laughs, drops her robe, steps in without hesitation. You blink again. The man unfurls his scroll, begins reading. The woman adjusts a gold pin in her braid and starts humming. No one looks at you. No one says a thing. But your brain screams. This is co-ed. You glance around frantically. Where's your towel? gone, vanished like Atlantis. You inch toward the side of the bath, trying not to look panicked. Then, from a bench tucked behind a steam curtain, a matronly figure speaks. "Young person," she says, voice like a gavel wrapped in velvet. "Do you believe the Ptolemaic dynasty overtaxed rural districts or simply redistributed according to seasonal productivity?" You blink, water drips from your elbow. She doesn't wait, because I'll tell you, those amphory tallies were a travesty of record-keeping. And don't get me started on the grain quotas in Bonus Heraclean. You nod, because what else can you do? Another person enters, then another. Suddenly the bath is bustling. A pair of twins argue over whether goats should count as personal property. A man insists he saw a star fall into his soup. Someone sneezes and blames the papyrus dye. You slide further into the water, only your nose visible now. Someone steps on your robe. You had a robe, too late now. The woman beside you nudges your arm. You look tense. You make a sound that is half sigh, half ancient lamentation. "Try the citrus oil," she says, offering a small vial. You take it, sniff it, regret it. It smells like what happens when a lemon and a philosophical crisis collide. You politely set it down. In the corner, the matron is still talking. "And don't you think that taxation without representation is the root cause of poetic decline?" You don't answer. You're already halfway to the exit. Naked, possibly, mentally, absolutely. You reach for a towel. It's wet. You reach for another. It's smaller than a napkin. Someone hands you a bucket. "Trade you," he says. You give him the lemon oil. You wrap the bucket around yourself as best you can and slink out the door. Avoiding eye contact, historical debates, and the sound of laughter echoing behind you. The air outside hits you like a second awakening. Cool, bracing. You are not relaxed, but you are clean, sort of, and your brain has been thoroughly exfoliated by bathhouse politics and saltwater confusion. You sit on a warm stone step and try to remember your name. You can't, but you do remember a quote from earlier. The pyramid was not built to last forever, only long enough to be remembered. You think, perhaps, the same can be said of modesty, or towels. You sit on the sun-warmed step outside the bathhouse, steam curling from your skin like forgotten dreams. The sky above is shifting, no longer gold, not quite blue, that strange in-between light, where the sun seems to pause before committing to night. You clutch your makeshift towel wrap, the borrowed bucket creaking with every movement, and wonder, is this the lowest point? Or the beginning of something ridiculous? Behind you, muffled splashing and debate continue, as if you hadn't just fled a scene of communal bathing, economic theory, and olive soap-fueled existential crisis. You laugh, not because it's funny, but because if you don't, you might start crying, and the last thing you need is salt water again. Just then, a shadow falls across your feet. You look up. It's the towel thief, not who you expected. A child, maybe 10, eyes bright with mischief and something else. He holds your actual towel like a banner, folded with suspicious precision. "I thought you might want this back," he says, utterly unapologetic. You reach for it. He pulls it back. "First, a question," he says. "Of course. Why do people argue more when they're clean?" You stare at him. "That's not a real question." He tilts his head. "Isn't it?" You sigh, because when the body is relaxed, The mind starts stirring. He nods, then tosses the towel into your lap and runs off, barefoot, into the sandstone alleys. You consider chasing him on principle. Instead, you wrap the towel around yourself with something like dignity. You stand, shake your head, and begin walking. The streets are cooling now. Shops pulling down reed blinds. Vendors packing up dried figs and lentil paste and philosophies left unsold. You pass a musician playing a single-stringed instrument to a crowd of cats. None of the cats clap. You follow the winding path uphill, led by instinct and the lingering smell of charcoal and sweet bread. Halfway up the slope, you stumble upon a courtyard glowing with ember lanterns. A small sign reads, "Philosophical laundry, clothes, minds, guilt." You blink. There's no door, just a hanging drape of linen, stitched with ink symbols. You push through. Inside, chaos. Not violent, not loud, just overwhelming. Scrolls pinned to drying lines. Robes folded by political alignment. Soap blocks carved into busts of major thinkers. Plato, Democritus, someone labeled Steve. A woman with blue ink on her cheeks greets you. First time, you nod. She hands you a clipboard. List all the ideas you accidentally absorbed in the bathhouse. You frown. I'm not sure I retained anything. Just trauma. That counts. You scribble something vague about Ptolemaic grain ratios and towel justice. She nods solemnly, then whisks away to reprimand a man trying to debate socks. You drift toward a row of cubbies, each one labeled ego, mild rinse, delusions of grandeur, tumble only, existential dampness, no heat. You chuckle and feel your body begin to soften again. A pair of robes is handed to you, one deep indigo, one soft rust. You choose rust. It smells like sleep. You change. The bucket is finally left behind. May it rest in honorable retirement. You sit at a low table in the center of the room, where others are sipping mint water and reading aloud questions. Not answers, just questions, like, if memory is water, why do some things sink? What if you are the echo, not the voice? Do stars envy seeds? You listen, you do not speak, not yet. A bell rings, not loudly, not even from a bell. Really, just a sound that tells you the ritual has shifted. Everyone stands, no announcements, no rules. You follow, out the back, into a small courtyard. There, hanging from a frame of olive wood, an enormous cloth map, not of cities, not of oceans, but of feelings, regions like Doubt Marsh, Joy Ridges, the Valley of Assumptions, the border of unlearned things. It is stitched with gold thread in moments you cannot translate. You stare at it until your eyes stain. Someone beside you whispers, "That's the route home." You turn to look. It's the matron from the bathhouse. She's changed into a linen shift and holds a small satchel of herbs. Her tone is soft now. "I come here when I forget how to argue gently," she says. You nod. "I didn't expect today to end like this." You admit. She smiles. Endings are impatient. This is a continuation. She presses the satchel into your hand. "For your dreams," she says, "or your laundry. Sometimes they're the same." You thank her. She walks away. You remain. The map flutters once in the breeze. And you understand. You have not been humiliated. You have been translated into someone who knows that discomfort can be instruction, that public baths are battlegrounds of the soul, and that dignity is best worn loose and slightly damp. You step into the street, rust robe flowing, salt on your skin, a map in your mind, and you walk back toward the sea, toward the next chapter. The city breathes, not like lungs, like tides, in and out, with an ancient rhythm too slow for clocks and too deep for calendars. You can feel it now with every step. Alexandria doesn't just exist. It pulses. The stone beneath your feet is warm from centuries of footfalls, baked golden by the sun and polished by sandal after sandal. The scent in the air is a mix of seawater, roasted sesame, and faint lamp smoke, almost comforting, if not for the constant whisper behind it all. The whisper of things left unsaid, unread, unfinished. You follow the sounds toward the harbor. There's something magnetic about the sea tonight. It draws people in droves, scholars, sailors, beggars, mystics, and market vendors alike. It's as though the moon has sent out an invitation for everyone to gather and remember. And they do, by torchlight, on marble steps and along wooden docks. They congregate. Some argue, some murmur, a few just stare at the sky with glassy eyes. Someone sings a song with only one note, held for far too long. Others nod appreciatively, claiming they understand. You find a spot on a low bench near a pillar etched with names you can't pronounce. Next to you sits a young man with ink-stained fingers and a star chart tattooed across his forearm. He doesn't speak. He just hands you a roasted date wrapped in fig leaf and keeps watching the water. You chew thoughtfully. The date is sweet, sticky with something darker than sugar. The waves lap the stone like they're trying to smooth away history. But history clings. Especially here, especially tonight, down by the jetty, a group of philosophers argues over the nature of rest. One insists that no one ever truly sleeps, that even in dreams, the mind scribbles. Another counters that the body only heals when the mind gives up entirely. A third, wrapped in a cloak of midnight blue, laughs and says, rest isn't the absence of motion, it's motion in alignment. They all pause, look at each other, then start arguing again, louder this time. You chuckle, then wince. Your feet are sore, blistered, battered, shaped by stones and the weight of questions. You take off your sandals and let the cool stone chill your heels. It helps, barely. Behind you, a vendor is selling sweet bread shaped like stars. You buy one. He smiles. Good choice, he says. Best eaten while watching ideas crash into each other. You smile back, not sure if he's joking. Probably not. You turn toward the sea again. The stars have shifted, not in their positions, but in their meaning. They feel heavier now. Not just balls of burning gas, but archives. A philosopher nearby says as much. Each star is a memory with its own orbit. You believe him. You look up and feel them watching you back. A woman nearby begins dancing, not gracefully, not precisely, but with intent. Her arms draw spirals. Her feet trace ellipses. She's dancing the geometry of dreams. Others join her, not with choreography, with recognition. Their movement pulls at you. You stand, you sway, you step once, then again, and suddenly, your blistered feet don't hurt. They remember how to move, not just across land, but through meaning. The rhythm isn't in the music. It's in the moment. The stars above shimmer. You wonder if they're smiling, or wincing, or waiting. A man to your right whispers. They'll realign once we stop trying to read them and start listening. You don't know what that means, but it lands somewhere deep. The crowd swells, the wind shifts, a tide of silence rises for a heartbeat, then breaks into laughter, singing, rustling paper, crackling torches, and the low hum of ideas being shared like bread. You sit again, you breathe, and it's here, in the middle of this swirl, this storm of thoughts and questions, that you feel something you haven't felt all day. A pause, not emptiness, not numbness, just space, inside your chest, inside your mind, between your thoughts, a silence that isn't silence at all, but readiness. The wind picks up, the torches flicker, and somewhere in the city, a bell tolls, not for an ending, for a beginning. You don't stand right away. The stone beneath you has cooled, and your body, long battered by knowledge, ritual, and unexpected co-ed bath politics, seems finally willing to rest, not collapse, not shut down, but rest, in the deepest sense of the word. Rest is a choice. The sounds of Alexandria, once a dense tapestry of voices, footsteps, crackling scrolls and shouted philosophies, have softened into a quiet hum. It doesn't disappear, it recedes, like tide water making room for reflection. Somewhere nearby, a child giggles, chasing a floating paper lantern. Farther off, a group chants verses in a language too old for grammar. You watch the sea turn black, but it's not frightening. It's deep, infinite, and filled with the reflection of constellations that feel older than even the stones in the library's foundation. You realize you've stopped craving answers. You no longer care whether the pyramids were batteries, or if Atlantis was real, or if Aristotle plagiarized from temple scrolls. Those questions still matter, but not for solving. They matter for searching, and in that way, you've become what Alexandria was always meant to create, not a scholar, not a sage, but a seeker. You rise once more, not out of necessity, but with the gentle propulsion of purpose. The path along the harbor curves toward a cliff that overlooks the sea. You follow it, sandals in hand, stone pressing softly against your soles. At the edge of the cliff stands a structure so small and plain. You almost miss it. It's a bench, one of those ancient benches carved directly from rock, its back shaped like two open hands. You sit between them, not to be held, to be offered. Before you, the harbor flickers, hundreds of tiny lights, boats, homes, braziers, and dreams. The night wind carries salt and incense and unfinished poems. And then, a presence, not physical, not divine, just a knowing. You aren't alone. You've never been, because you carry them now. Those who carved, who questioned, who tried to teach the stars to speak. Their echoes live in your voice. Their patterns pulse behind your eyes. You close those eyes, not to sleep, to listen, and you hear the pulse of the library, books turning without hands, the hum of the pyramids, geometry folding in on itself, the laughter of the bathhouse, splashing against logic, the voices of those you met, some imagined, some perhaps more real than the street you walked, and beneath it all, your own heartbeat, synchronized now with something older, slower, wider. You breathe in, a smell like cedar and silence. You breathe out, and feel lighter. A star blinks out overhead, then another, and you realize it's not night falling. It's you, falling into night, but not in darkness, in surrender, to a place that doesn't need remembering, because it remembers you. Your mind floats towards sleep, but your body stays warm, wrapped in the soft linen of meaning. And just before your thoughts scatter into dreams, a final image lingers, a scroll, unwritten, a pen resting gently on its edge, waiting, not for history, for you, to continue the telling, to write not with facts, but with wonder, to let each question be a candle, not a cage. And in the quiet that follows, you hear the city sigh, not goodbye, but come back when you forget again. And you will, because the soul remembers what the world forgets. And Alexandria is never gone. It's just waiting for you to open the right door, walk far enough through thought, and arrive, again, softly, like sleep, blank, underscore, blank. Thank you for listening to the entire video. Now take a deep breath, relax your body, and start getting some good sleep. If you like this space and want to see me again on future nights, please like and follow. We have many more nights to tell stories together. Leave me a gentle note in the comments. What city are you drifting off from tonight? And what time is it where you are?